32F. I've been with my husband for 11 years, married for 4, and am currently 7 months pregnant with our first child, a girl. My husband's mother passed away a few days after she gave birth to my SIL due to high blood pressure. My husband was 5 years old at the time, so he remembers losing his mom, and it was obviously traumatic for him. My husband became a doctor as a result, although he's not an OB, and he's one of the smartest people I know, but he's also very analytical and anxious. One of his professors in med school once told him he was simultaneously one of the smartest students he's ever taught, and also the most anxious. He got diagnosed with OCD as a child, and while I've only seen it flare up a few times since he typically has it under control, it's horrible when it does. Once, he convinced himself he had HIV and had given it to me even though there is no way he could have contracted it. He knew this logically. He's a doctor for the love of God, but his brain continued to tell him otherwise. He got tested several times, was negative each time, but always believed the test was wrong. Another time, he started convincing himself that he hit a dog or a child driving home from work. For weeks, he drove around the neighborhood several times a night to make sure there wasn't a body in the middle of the road. He told me he knows he didn't hit anything, but he couldn't shake the feeling he did. These episodes usually last around 2 weeks, and then he's back to normal. He's in therapy for his OCD and also takes medication, and so the extra support really helps him in most cases. But for the last few weeks, my husband has been in the worst OCD spiral I've ever seen. Every time I look over at him, he's reading an article about the rising maternal mortality rate in the United States or an article about the causes of maternal mortality. He goes to every appointment with me and asks the doctor a million questions about my health. Sometimes, he'll ask if I'm having any symptoms of hypertension, such as bad headaches or vision changes. The other day, I made the mistake of saying I was exhausted and had a small headache, and he started freaking out and trying to get me to call my doctor. I finally called the doctor after hours of him begging, and the doctor confirmed that it was just normal tiredness from work and the pregnancy. That night, we were in bed, and he just looked at me, started tearing up. I told him I'm healthy and everything is going to be fine. My doctor has assured him of this countless times, but he couldn't stop crying. I honestly have never seen the OCD this bad. He's been seeing his therapist 3 times a week since this started, and they're adjusting his medication, but there's not really much else we can do other than wait for the symptoms to die down. I want to be clear that I feel for my husband right now, and don't blame him at all for how he's acting. I think my pregnancy is causing his OCD to spike because of what happened to his mom. I also know that his concern for me is coming from a place of love for me and the baby. At the same time, it's causing me a ton of stress, and I now know way too much about maternal mortality. This is obviously not something I want to be thinking about nonstop heading into childbirth. I expressed all of this to my husband, and he said he felt terrible for causing me so much stress during the pregnancy when he's only trying to help. I told him I know it's not his fault and he can't control it, so I don't want him to feel guilty for anything. I did, however, ask if he'd consider staying in the waiting room while I give birth. It's going to be stressful enough, and I'm worried he'll be asking the doctors a million questions and get anxious if the slightest thing goes wrong. My husband got teary when I suggested this, and said it was his job to be there for me and the baby. He also said he wanted to be there to make sure I was getting the best care possible, and he couldn't advocate for me from the waiting room. I expressed that him wanting to advocate for me indicates that he thinks something is going to go wrong, and his constant stress about my health is the reason I don't want him in the room with me. My husband says it's my decision and he'll respect it, but I can tell he's very upset by the prospect of not being in the room when our baby is born. AITAH for suggesting this. Any advice on how to handle this would be greatly appreciated.